pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Mrs. Meltzer.
Thank you. Mrs. West?
Here.
Mr. Keys?
Here.
Mr. Pearl?
Here.
Mr. Cannon?
Here.
Mr. Aragona?
Here.
Mr. Gilliam?
Here.
Mrs. Meltzer here.
Thank you. Mrs. Meltzer, do we have additions, deletions, or changes in the order?
We do. Item number 7 is deleted. Item 13 is a partial deletion. Item 14 is deleted. And there's an add-on, item number 15. And then can we move item 9 and 10 to number 1 and 2?
Is there a motion for the amended agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Supported by Mrs. West. Roll call, please.
Support. Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
You like my yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passed.
Thank you. Welcome to your Township Board meeting this evening. If there's anything you wish to say that is on the agenda as it comes before the board, please come forward and give us your name and address for the record. We do have public comment at the end of the meeting for those who have something that's not on the agenda that they would like to state. So with that, we'll take item 9, the SEMCOG Green Infrastructure Grant Agreement for Normandy Park.
Dear board members, Clinton Township was recently awarded a grant from SEMCOG for the Green Infrastructure Implementation Program. The grant uses funds from EPA's Great Lakes Restoration Initiative to implement green infrastructure projects in southeast Michigan. The goal of the program is to provide funding to public entities and schools to construct green infrastructure techniques for environmental benefits, including stormwater runoff and nutrient loading reduction. The goals of this grant are consistent with upcoming improvements to Normandy Park. The Clinton Township Board of Trustees unanimously approved a supporting resolution to pursue this grant funding on March 25, 2019. The total amount received from SEMCOG through this grant is $46,500. These funds will be used as part of the Normandy Park parking lot and trail improvements. Improvements to Normandy Park are proposed for early next year. Funding will be used for the installation of a bioretention and butterfly and pollinator garden area and other stormwater-friendly plantings. A copy of the concept plan that was part of the grant submittal is attached. The next steps in the grant acceptance process is obtaining township approval and execution of the attached grant agreement. We see this as another opportunity to expand the practices of urban ecology within the community. Based on the intrinsic environmental benefits this funding will provide to Clinton Township, AEW and the Department of Public Services recommends approval and execution of this agreement for utilization of the grant funds. Please review this information and contact me with any questions. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Engineer.
Thank you. We're very pleased about this grant, obviously. It's a nice grant from SEMCOG. We had our DPW work on this. We had Mary Bednar work on this, and of course, AEW through Scott Chabot, and I know that they work very closely together. It will be a nice shot in the arm for the park. Are there any comments or questions? Mr. Chabot, we simply make a motion to receive the money?
Yeah, that's correct. It would just be the board accepting, the grant agreement as presented or prepared inside with the board packet, and then executed and sent back to SEMCOG.
Is there a motion to that effect?
moved.
Moved by Mr. Pearl, supported by Mr. Gilliam. Very good. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Then, item 10, District E, Golden Street Sanitary Sewer Relief System and Water Main Replacement, change in conditions.
Dear board members, the District E Golden Street Sanitary Relief System and Water Main Replacement is currently under construction with the relief sewer phase of the work being complete. On June 13, 2019, Paymar Industries, Inc. encountered an unrecorded, unmapped, and non-visible Macomb County Department of Roads storm sewer structure and 36-inch reinforced concrete sewer pipe that conflicted with the placement of a sanitary manhole at the Golden Street 15-mile road intersection. The existing storm manhole was found under the existing pavement with no frame and cover and was covered with a steel plate. See attached photos. Based on existing utility constraints and other structural conflicts, the manhole had to be relocated in line with existing sanitary sewer along Golden. This required removal of 32 linear feet of existing 15-inch storm sewer and replacement with 24-inch reinforced concrete pipe. An additional manhole was also needed for this work. A sewer bypass and efforts to temporarily remove a traffic signal pedestal was also needed. The proposed amount for this contract modification is $52,987.91. Based on this change and prior contract modifications to the contract price of $1,818,600,000, I'm sorry, too many numbers, $1,818,613.51. The revised contract amount is now $1,879,723.42, which is 3.36% over contract amount. AEW and the Department of Public Services reviewed the information regarding the additional work and time needed to realign the relief sewer and found those costs acceptable. Since this change condition results in a fairly substantial increase in the contract amount in the early stages of the project and is part of a cost-sharing project with Macomb County Department of Roads, it is incumbent to inform the Township Board of these additionally incurred costs for the project. Due to the underlying cause and nature of this change condition, we advise the Township Board requests reimbursement from the Macomb County Department of Roads for the additional work associated with contract modification number 2. Please let us know if you have any further questions. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Manager for AEW.
Mr. Gilliam?
So,
First of all, yeah, you can
yeah.
have the floor. There is no possible way anyone could have known about this because there is no recording. So here we open up the ground, and here it is.
So as I'm reading through this, just a couple of points. This is a cost-sharing agreement already with the County Department of Roads.
Correct.
Can you give a characterization of what Department of Roads is paying for, what we're paying for?
Yes, the Department of Roads is paying for a percentage of, or a portion of the road that wouldn't have otherwise been impacted by the installation of the relief sewer. So they were contributing or helping into the cost of the repaving of the road, essentially, and any of the drainage improvements associated with that.
Okay. And so then we open up the road and we find that this huge thing is just under the ground and there's no record or no map anyplace?
That is correct.
Where are these records normally kept?
Department of Roads usually keeps as-built or plans. We went back,
Okay.
I actually spoke with some of their personnel, and they went back, they didn't have any record or information of that structure or the pipe being shown on any of those existing drawings.
And so to make sure that I'm correct in sort of my understanding of this, this is a relief sewer for like water that just flows into the catch basins off the road then? No?
No. This
No?
is
Okay.
part of the ACO.
No, he's,
This-
No,
you're
no,
talking
I'm
about the existing.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
That was
sorry. Correct.
Yeah, this-
unbeknownst to everybody.
Yeah, this takes in road water along 15 Mile Road.
Okay.
And it,
Where
apparently,
does it flow to then?
it ties, from what I was told, it directly taps county drain, which is in 15 Mile Road. There's like a blind tap with no structure.
Okay. So we know we know the line that it flows into, we just didn't know that this main was
And there was a
there.
structure, and it kind of made a 90-degree sweep, if you want to call it, in this structure. But it was like, as the pictures were showing, it was completely covered under pavement with the steel plate on top of it.
And so pure speculation, because I know that there's no record, as you've indicated, but when was this done? Was this done when, like, years and years and years ago, or was this part of when they widened 15 Mile Road to 5 lanes, or, I mean, what's the?
It didn't look that old. My guess, if I were to look at just the condition of the concrete, and even the pictures, maybe 15 years old, 20 years.
So that's
maximum.
probably when they expanded the road to 5 lanes?
Probable.
Okay. All right. And so this request tonight is for us to say, County Department of Roads, we're asking you to pick up the cost of all of the extra engineering, all of the extra related cost of rerouting things and all these, in a sense, change orders, correct?
That's what we're asking the board tonight, is for requesting what we can for the reimbursement for
Okay.
those costs.
And that equals the 52,000, roughly,
53.
53?
Yeah.
53,000, okay. All right, great, thank you, I appreciate it.
It is really hard to believe that, and I trust that you don't have any records that, something that's less than 20 years old, because that was done, that was one of the first road projects under my administration. And you would think.
You'd be surprised. I remember years ago, aside from all the 15-mile problems, but at 14 in Groesbeck, we found a storm sewer that was dumping the water from Groesbeck, from the pavement, into a sanitary sewer. So that had to be changed. But sometimes when you start checking physically out there, you find things that somebody did years and years ago.
Yeah, but this wasn't that old. I mean, this is something when they've got, practices that are, I think, far more,
Correct. Should be. up
shall
to
we
date.
say, correct in record keeping and best practices and things like that, right?
Somebody made a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not happy about this, but is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a-
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then item number 1 is appointments to the Ethics Board. Remember, we created this Ethics Board to have 3 members who will provide advisory opinions and recommendations to our board when there is a complaint as to a provision in the code that we passed. The initial members of the board being appointed tonight will be appointed for 1, 2, and 3-year terms in office. Mrs. Middlestad has been charged with providing information for this board, so I'm going to ask, and I've gone through it at the staff meeting, that she draw 1, 2, and 3 for who has a 1-year term, who has a 2-year term, and a 3-year term to start with. Thereafter, every year, someone will be reappointed for a 3-year term. It's silent as to how we're going to go about it, whether it be a recommendation from the supervisor and the board approves, or just the board give their names. I'm fine with the board. We'll go right down, starting with Mrs. West, giving the 3 names that you wish, and we'll go down to the end, and the top 4 vote getters, a motion will be made to appoint them, then to meet with Mrs. Middlestat, and when they do that, they select their own chairperson and establish procedures that they deem necessary and appropriate to perform functions as set forth in our ethics code. So that's the long and the short of it. Several people came and introduced themselves 2 weeks ago, and one person removed their name from the list, so we have Ms. Carrie Gilchrist, Mr. Dan Maher. I'm sorry, Mrs. Meltzer, now it's your turn.
Oh, that's okay. Just that there's 6.
Your turn.
Yeah, Miss Stephanie Garza, Mr. Scott Gotti, Mr. Joe Miko, and Miss Marge Rama.
Okay, I missed one, yes. Okay, with that, Mrs. West, I'll ask you for your 3 votes.
Mr. Gotti, Ms. Rama, and Carrie Gilchrist.
Thank you. Mr. Keys?
Maher, Gilchrist, and Gotti.
Maher, Gilchrist, and Gotti. Thank you. Mr. Pearl?
Maher, Gotti, and Rama.
And Rama. Cannon is Maher, Gotti, and Rama. Mr. Aragona?
Maher, Gotti, and Rama.
Mr. Gilliam?
Gotti, Gilchrist, and Maher.
Sorry, I'm just writing this down.
Mrs. Meltzer?
Maher, Gotti, and Rama.
A motion would be in order to appoint Mr. Maher, Mr. Gotti, and Mrs. Rama to the initial Board of Ethics,
So moved.
Support.
supported by Mr. Keys. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 2.
Just real quick, Mr. Cannon, before we go on, so, we actually got like 6, 7 applications on this. But one of the things I did today, as I was going through the agenda over again, is to say, take a look at the website. There are a number of committee appointments that are up. We've got 3 on conservation, we've got 5 on the new beautification committee. We've got, I think, 2 on cultural diversity. We're going to be, I think, reposting board of review later tonight. So, there are lots of opportunities, lots of committees for residents to participate in. And, ClintonTownship.com, it's right on the homepage of the website. I encourage people to go on there and try to strike a connection with the issues that they care about.
It's very good, and ironically, the next item is just that, the committee reposting. And I would also let the board know I'm in the process of getting together the dates of all the meetings of the committees, and we're going to post them so that others can attend, because they are open meetings, whether it's a Parks and Rec meeting or whether it's a Conservation Committee meeting. The more hands, the better. You don't have to have only voting members at your meetings. Okay, so with that, item 2, Mrs. Meltzer?
Well, are we going to have a motion to appoint?
We
We
did.
did.
We just did?
We did.
Okay, I'm
We
sorry.
did.
That's okay.
We did.
Dear board members, there is one open partial term on the Board of Review which has not received an application. At this time, it would be appropriate to repost the open term positions in accordance to our committee guidelines. The open term will be advertised for an additional 60 days. Sincerely, Stephanie Middlestat, Administrative Assistant.
Is there a motion to repost?
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Per state statute, we have some school crossing guard costs to the township. Mrs. Meltzer?
Dear board members, attached for your review are the invoices from Chippewa Valley School Districts and Clintondale Community Schools for school crossing guards for the 2018-19 school year. A comparison of this year's bill with last year's follows. Chippewa Valley's, the prior bill was $17,107.19. The current bill that we'd be approving would be $18,602.77. For Clintondale, the prior bill was $13,837.55, and the new current bill will be $16,225.94. Please review the attached invoices and approve for payment. Sincerely, Mary Hine, Assistant Finance Director.
Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Cannon? Oh.
As soon as I get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know, I didn't do my homework, I guess, on this earlier today, but what is the reason for the bigger jump for Clintondale? Do we have any information on that, or no?
I don't know, but we have very specific guidelines that we follow, and the police department is on top of it. Years ago, our bills were much larger. We realized that we were paying for things we shouldn't be paying for. And in fact, there was a board I was on years ago that tried to not pay anything toward this crossing guard. So we've got it straightened out. This is our fair share, and why one goes up over another, we'd have to go back to the person that did the study.
It says here that the salaries are billed on an actuarial expenditure, so,
I do know that our police department approves all the locations for the guards.
okay, very good. Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And coming up in our community next Sunday is our Gratiot Cruise. We have some additions, and we have several folks here who are going to talk about some of the changes. If you want to take the podium. Mrs. Stephanie Middlestat, Administrative Aide, Parks and Rec.
Yes.
Tammy.
Tammy?
Tammy and I have been working along with the Gratiot Cruise Committee in helping to add some additions to the new Gratiot Cruise this year. As we all know, Parks and Rec puts on some really great programs, and it just kind of made sense to put them in charge of the new addition to the Gratiot Cruise. So we had attached to the meeting a map showing the new area of the Touch a Truck. And you can look up on the screen, and right now we have, quick count, sorry, 1, 2, 11 vehicles that will be joining us in the new area for the new Touch a Truck event. And we're super excited and happy for the additions.
Yeah, I would say, our one main goal is, awareness. We want to let people know all of the new and exciting things that we're bringing to the event. But also, by bringing the map, we show all of the additional partners that we've brought on and the community support. A lot of these are township departments and local businesses that are willing and able to support these events and make them possible for us. So it's a great addition, and I think it'll kind of revitalize the Midway for us a little bit.
Do you plan to have food trucks in that area also?
There is food trucks that are listed up in the family fun zone. There is 3 of them, and they were nicely given a shout out in this weekend's Macomb Daily. There was a whole section that showed the whole cruise route in addition to the food trucks and a lot of the sponsors. And this is just a new addition to this year's cruise.
We've all prided ourselves that this is a family-friendly, child-friendly cruise. What hours of the day will this be open?
So the Midway's going to have a lot going on between 12 and 5. The Touch a Truck portion is 12 to 3, correct?
Correct.
But anytime from 12 to 5, we'll have activities, all free events other than the food trucks going on for kids and families to enjoy.
And that's all staffed by our award-winning Parks and Rec Department.
Yep.
Very
Mr.
good.
Cannon, in the letter it says, and I want to shout out to the Dorian, so I want to say more than just Fun Zone, it's the Dorian Fun Zone, because they've been so generous over the years for our Gresham Cruise. But it says open from 11 a.m. to 5? Would that be, or is it noon?
In addition to the parade, there's kind of been a couple different times that have been thrown around. The official parade starts at 11:10. They start lining up. They do the pedal car races, and then they do the official parade. And then that's really when the family fun zone and the touch a truck area will officially open.
Okay.
Unofficially, there will be staff there
Yep.
before then. But we just kind of want to drive the traffic to the parade first.
Okay.
And then let everybody know that they can come over with lots of free handouts and free things for the families and kids in the area.
Thank you.
Thank you. And board members are all invited to go on the opening lap, to come to the opening ceremonies. We have General Slocum as our Grand Marshal this year. We early on started talking about who should be the Grand Marshal this year, and they wanted a veteran. And I knew that he was going to be retiring, so I reached out to him just at retirement time, and he was thrilled to be the Grand Marshal. So he'll lead the parade. Mr. Pearl?
Yeah, I'm really glad that the committee decided to go ahead with the touch a truck. I've seen that operated for years in Macomb Township at Seneca Middle School at Chippewa Valley. There's probably 4,000 people that come out to that in a couple-hour period, and there's a lot of free events and a lot of vehicles. And I was wondering how it was received, and it was unbelievable, the amount. The kids just like to jump on the vehicles and get in the driver's seat and pretend they're driving. These heavy lifting, trucks, fire trucks, police vehicles, RVs. This is a smaller addition. It's not as large as they have. They probably have 50 vehicles, but they've been doing it for 20 years out
Yep.
there. Then the mall did it a year ago, and they were thrilled at the response.
Very
So being
successful.
this is a family event, the cruise committee went along with this concept, and I'm glad that Stephanie and everyone in Parks and Rec is working on this together, because it takes a lot of coordination. But we're going to do a scaled-down version, but it's still going to be a lot of vehicles, as you can see on the map, and I hope the kids' families come out and stop there, also on their route around the loop, and have some fun.
Very good.
Well, I do know that in previous years, the township had a similar touch a truck event in the years ago in the past, so it was just a no-brainer for us to kind of slide it in there, and it made sense for another free family fun event in the area.
And speaking of that, we need some small children to come to 16 Mile.
Tammy's got so much fun stuff for little
Well,
guys.
the pedal cars, we're the only cruise that we know of that starts the cruise off with pedal cars. And years ago, Mr. Tiganelli sold sponsorships, and we have all these cars that he takes care of and brings them back and forth all the time. So bring your kids out, and we'll put them in a pedal car, and they can have fun and get a picture taken leading the parade.
Thank you.
Well, thank you,
Well
ladies.
done.
Mr. Keys?
Actually, Tammy, don't go too far. Just a quick question for Parks and Rec. I'm a huge fan of the Gratiot Cruise. As a I guess I'm still kind of young, but as a younger man, we would always go to the Gratiot Cruise on our bikes. And I think it's a great addition for Parks and Rec to be in the exact location you are, because so many kids from the neighborhood can get to you without even having to get on the street. So when did Parks and Rec start this tradition of joining in with Gratiot Cruise? When did that begin?
I think day one, except
Yeah.
we had everything at the Glass House day one. But that parking lot was in much better shape then, and the cruise wasn't as large as it is now. We started with maybe 15, 20,000 people coming to the cruise. Now it's big, and we're glad. All we need is good weather, and we will have a lot of people out there because there'll be a lot of great cars and a lot of activities for families.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to highlight that the fact of where you're at and the proximity to the neighborhoods is a huge benefit. It's one that I've always benefited from, and I hope that we continue that tradition of being local and accessible so kids don't even have to cross the street to participate in the Gratiot Cruise.
Absolutely.
We'll be able to get flyers out to our day camp. We'll be 180 kids.
Awesome.
Yep. Everyone should know.
Thank you.
Partly sunny and 86.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
We will have a very successful cruise.
But don't hold me to it. 'cause-
Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Support.
Support by Mrs. Meltzer.
My support was a little bit better than.
Do let me know if you're coming so that I can have a car for you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
thank you. And item 5, approval of appointment to a part-time custodial maintenance position.
Dear members of the board, the Department of Public Services is recommending the appointment of Mr. Robert Plancic to the position of part-time custodial maintenance. Based on the interview results and civil service testing procedures, the department is confident that Mr. Plancic is well qualified and will be an asset to the township. As a condition of employment, he will be required to successfully complete a background investigation and a pre-employment medical examination, including drug screen. This is a budgeted position per ASME 1103.12 contract. The starting hourly wage for the position is set at $16. Upon board approval, Mr. Plancic's first day of employment will be July 30th, 2019. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. Sincerely, William Smith, Human Resources Director.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Supported by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
thank you. And item 6 is request approval to purchase a replacement 5-yard dump truck.
Dear members of the board, attached are price quotes for the purchase of a 5-yard dump truck. We have contacted the vendors, and they have agreed to honor the prices quoted using the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network, or MITN, for a 5-yard tandem dump truck for the Water and Sewer Department. In accordance with township purchasing and bid policies, the recommendation is to award the truck chassis to Gorno Ford in the amount of $75,552, and award the dump body and associated accessories to Knapheide Truck Equipment in the amount of $37,464. This purchase was budgeted for the current fiscal year, and if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Sincerely, Charles Belmore, Assistant Superintendent of Water and Sewer.
Thank you. Are there any questions? If not, the floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. West. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
thank you. And item 7 has been deleted. Item 8, Metro Act permit extension for AT&T Michigan. Mr. Dolan?
Yes, we received correspondence, which is part of your board package, from AT&T. They're submitting a standard renewal permit request throughout the various communities in Michigan for their Metro Act permit, which has yet to expire. When I looked into this, I had some concern as to whether or not we could appropriately charge another $500 fee. The statute is a little bit vague on the question. It became clear to me looking into it, though, that under no circumstances was AT&T going to agree to pay that $500. I spoke to Mike Watts, the attorney on behalf of ProTech, which is the group that is a assembly of various communities who work together on Metro Act and cable television issues. He took a look at the statute. He came back. He agreed with me that there appeared to be some basis for us to impose the fee, but he also cautioned and said that he understood also that they're not going to pay it. and that most likely it would require litigation. Well, this is a 5-year proposed agreement, and it's a $500 fee, and unfortunately, it just doesn't make sense for us from a cost-benefit analysis to stick to our guns and try to impose the $500 fee and wind up in litigation over a fee that we can only collect every 5 years. So with that, I'm urging that we go ahead and proceed without attempting to further collect that $500 fee. If there are any other questions regarding this, I'd be glad to answer them. The Metro Act permit agreements are by statute. The actual agreements themselves are a standard form that are promulgated at the state level and that are executed by the communities. Our compensation on these matters is premised on the lineal footage that's installed within the community. So we get basically paid. We don't get, we can't, for example, negotiate our own rates and fees. They're pretty much established by statute. And there is a stabilization committee that's an adjunct of the state government that has the responsibility of keeping track of the submittals and then allocating out the payments. We get paid every year by the state for the number of permits that have been issued and the footages that are installed. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Keys?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly, Mr. Doan, what are the benefits of accepting this now and not waiting for the term to come closer to its expiration date?
Well, they have the ability to request permits. We have to act on their permits, and we'd have to, give some kind of reasoning for a denial. And if it's not appropriate, then it's going to be overturned and considered approved. So it's really, based on the structure of the statute, something that we don't really have a basis to object to. In other words, we can't say, come back and see us later when we're closer to expiration.
Right. Okay. Understood. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gannon? If I can, Mr. Dolan, it is a 45-day response. I think we have to respond, and but it just doesn't sit well with me that AT&T, a big corporation, can't fork over $500. And I just, is there any letter that we can send to the, is it the MPSC, or is there any way that we can say that, I think this is terrible that, a big corporation that can clearly afford it gets away with it, yet somebody that might come in to ask for a permit, even a $50 or $100 permit, that might actually really dig deep into their back pocket, would still have to pay it. It just doesn't seem fair to me.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Commenting on that, as you know, within the last several months, there were significant legislative changes, and really actually going back now about 6 months, there were significant changes at both the state and federal level dealing with wireless providers, which resulted in legislation passed both at the Michigan level, at the state level, and with orders entered by the FCC, which were pretty much seen as very much industry favorable and minimizing the amount of control and rights that local units of government had, and basically what I would consider to be pragmatic considerations for the benefit of the public at large. So the trend right now is not a favorable trend. The telecommunications industry seems to have successfully gotten the attention of both the FCC and the state legislature in Michigan to get what they want. So it's not a good environment for us right now. Certainly we can send a letter, but as far as it having any benefit, I don't really see that. And as far as us, through, for example, the MTA and the Michigan Municipal League, attempting to successfully get legislative changes on this, I don't really see that as being fruitful after what just happened 6 months ago on the wireless issue.
Well, I guess I would like to point out that this is unfortunate. It's another example. We've had local control removed in the area of fireworks, liquor control, massage licensing, even our funding for roads and through our statutory revenue sharing, that's been diminished. So we keep getting, the state keeps chipping away at our revenue and still expecting us to provide the services that we always have. This is another example. $500 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it certainly could be paid for by AT&T. It's just, but it's another example where the state's taken away local control, and now we have to just suck it up. And I'm very offended by the fact that we have to accept this.
I agree. I think that our Parks and Rec director ought to contact them and tell them we need some money for some of your activities. I'm serious. Okay, is there a motion to take Mr. Dolan's recommendation and not pursue the $500 fee in lawsuits?
So moved.
And go ahead and approve the.
And approve it.
Yep. Is there a second?
Support.
Supported by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
No.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. 9 and 10 have been taken care of. Item 11, request approval to attend FBI training.
Dear board members, I'm requesting board approval to attend the annual in-state 2019 FBI-NAA Fall Conference, September 3rd to the 6th. This training is hosted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and is one of the 3 training seminars I will be attending this year. I'm on the curriculum committee and will have additional responsibilities during the conference. I'm budgeted to attend this worthwhile training, which is held on Mackinac Island. Thank you for your prompt consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Fred Posovitz, Chief of Police.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Support.
And just real quick, Chief, if you could, what is, through the chair to you, NAA? Just,
National Academy Associates.
okay, all right.
Those who have graduated the FBI Academy. You have to have gone to the police, to the FBI Academy.
Okay, so it's the National, I'm sorry?
Academy Associates.
National Academy Associates. Okay, all right, great. I know you weren't on the mic, so I wanted to just repeat that. Thanks.
Joe, did you?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 12, the police drone purchase.
Dear committee members, I'm requesting a budget amendment in our current 2019-2020 police budget. I'm requesting $4,200 to be transferred from the drug forfeiture fund into capital outlay to cover the full amount of the budget-approved drone. There was a lengthy, out-of-our-control delay in ordering this drone. We had sent 7 officers to train and got them licensed with the Federal Aviation Administration to fly it. In an effort to retain the information learned from the training, it was recommended that we purchase a much smaller drone until now, not only to train on, but to use now in the field, until the more expensive drone can be ordered. We have purchased that smaller drone and are training the officers on it and have it ready for use. Once this request is approved, we will order the budgeted approved larger drone. Thank you for your prompt consideration in this matter. Sincerely, Fred Posovitz, Chief of Police.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions?
Move to approve.
I'll support.
Mr. Keys?
Just quickly through the chair, if the chief wants to answer, maybe the chair can answer. I'm just curious, what is the upgraded drone capabilities, and what are we going to be able to do that we can't currently do with the smaller one?
Initially, we always intended to get the $20,000 one. Just so, if you're not familiar with drones, they come in all shapes and sizes, as well as a wide variety of costs. From one that you can probably get at Hobby Lobby for $15, which is probably that big, probably to a $50,000 one. The one that we're looking at, the $20,000 one, is an all-purpose. It's probably, when it's got everything hooked up, ready to go, the 4 propellers, it's probably that big. It can go up in all kinds of weather, and that's what we had to look at. We're a 24-hour, service, 365 days a year. The small one that we currently have for $4,000 we had it out at the Bud Park one, the smaller one. And it worked well until it started raining. It's not waterproof, so we had to bring it down. So there's limitations with the smaller ones. The $20,000 one, it's better in windy days because you can still control it. You can imagine a small one that's light is going to get tossed around with higher winds. And when we're out there looking for somebody, whether it be a criminal, whether it's a vulnerable adult, somebody with Alzheimer's, a walk away from a nursing home, we want to get out there and we want to find that person because time is critical.
Right.
So that's why we want to have the best equipment out there. The large one also, as well as the small one, surprisingly enough, also have infrared. And that's what was really beneficial out there. So what it does is it looks for a heat signature that people give off. And that assists us in finding the people that we're looking for out there.
Very good. Is that it?
Just to continue, just quickly, and so that's one example of finding individuals that are lost. Are there any other examples of something we would use this for? I'm just thinking that sounds like to be maybe not an everyday use, but I'm sure that you're going to be having your officers trained on this and wanting to use it.
They already are. They had to go through FAA training and be licensed because it is aircraft. And since we're so close to Selfridge, we have to know the laws as far as how high you can fly them, how close to certain areas we can fly them. All that has to be, known, and also the training is required in licensing. So that was already accomplished. That was one of my concerns. We had these 7 officers trained,
Right.
and we didn't have a drone yet. And I didn't want them to forget what they learned. I wanted them to start using it, so that's why we got the cheaper one. And also, we had trouble getting the camera, the regular camera, not the infrared, on the big one was no longer available. So there was an unforeseen delay in us ordering it. So that's why I said, no, we got to get the smaller one and get these guys trained on it and get it out there and start using it. And that's why we ran into the predicament that we're in.
Okay, and last question, just about the video that you capture. Are you saving that in any capacity? Should
Yes.
we be thinking about storage in the future?
We have to store it because we don't know if we're going to need it for any evidentiary purposes. So we have a special computer that we have set up in the station, and all that's going to get downloaded on the computer. So we're all set up for that. We're just waiting for the big one. Another kind of a neat thing with the drones is it's actually like a speaker too. So when we get to an area that we want to talk or put out like a PA, it acts as a PA, so you can speak from your controller, and it actually comes out through the drone.
And is it clear that it's a police drone? Is it clear that it's somehow associated with the Clinton Township Police Department?
You can. I mean, it doesn't come that way, but most what police departments do, they put their numbers on it, their FAA numbers, and then a logo on there.
Gotcha.
Ours will have that.
Thank you very much.
We'll let you play with it.
All right, I'll take you up on that.
Just don't crash it.
So just
take
real
out
quick,
insurance
will
policy.
both then be in service?
Yeah, well,
Weather permitting, of course?
I'm sorry,
I said weather permitting, of course.
weather doesn't matter anymore
No, I'm
with the big
saying with
one.
the old one. The old one, you said
Yeah,
it was.
yeah, we're limited
so-
what we can do with it, but the good thing with the smaller one, it can be used in good conditions, but it also gives the people that are trained in it another piece of equipment they can practice on, and it's a lot cheaper.
Great,
Really
thank you.
neat things.
Right.
I was always afraid that they would crash, $20,000, you're going to crash my $20,000 drone into the wall. It won't let you. It has software in it that it won't let you crash it. It'll stop. It's phenomenal stuff.
I think it's a brave new world.
I'm learning. I'm always learning.
Well, if I may say, Chief, I mean, it was reassuring knowing that you guys were looking for that person at Bud Park because they thought they had come over to our street. And everybody was kind of panicked knowing that that person was out there for quite a long time. We were
Well-
looking for it. But knowing that you had helicopters up there when you could and drones was reassuring.
We have to really take every piece of equipment out there on something like that because you don't know in a situation like that what the person's intentions are. And that's a little scary and a little unnerving because somebody with a long rifle would have the capabilities of hurting a lot of people. So we take that very serious, and that's why we threw so many resources at
thank you.
that problem.
Thank you for doing that.
I
We
know
also
some
got
people were upset, and
notifications.
I I can't say I'm sorry, but that's what happens. Sometimes we have to be patient in those kind of situations where we have to find somebody, and time is of the essence before somebody gets hurt.
Your officers did a good job.
They
Thank
did
you.
a great
They did
job.
do a great job. They did.
Do we have a motion on the floor?
We do. Mhm. Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
thank you. Item 13, from the Building Department.
Dear Board members, the Personnel Vacancy Review Committee met on July 18th, 2019, to review the staffing requirements of one department. The committee is making the following recommendation. For the Building Department, the committee unanimously recommends the following: authorization for 2 permanent part-time code enforcement officer positions. The positions would average 20 hours per week at an authorized pay rate of $20 per hour. This action eliminates the department's seasonal code enforcement position. A budget amendment of $17,624 for fiscal year 2020 is required. Sincerely, William Smith, Human Resources Director.
Okay, this is the money that is in lieu of pay raises for this township board. This year's budget will require an amendment of $17,624. Had we voted yes for the increases in our salaries, it would have been much more than that. This also allows us now to have both of our code enforcement vehicles on the road every single day, other than when a full-time code person is on vacation. So somebody will work 2 days one week and 3 days the next, and then they're going to swap it. It will allow us to be much more proactive than simply reactive, and I think a lot of people in our community are going to like that. This will increase the ability of that department by so much more. I'm very excited about it. I'm very happy that the Township Board agreed to put that raise into this very necessary position, so thank you for that. Next year's budget increase will be $32,000 to accommodate the 2 part-time positions
Because
For the
it's a
entire
full
year.
year.
Yeah.
for the whole year.
Yeah, because this is
Correct.
memorized for the
Correct.
rest.
This allows, by the way, immediately for the person who currently is working seasonal to start almost full-time until the other person is hired. So again, it puts 2 people on the road every single day, or as many days as possible. It won't be every single day, but most days. So that's the request from the Personnel Vacancy Review Committee, which was unanimous. If there's a motion to approve, I would appreciate it.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Mr. Key, supported by Mrs. West. Discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I appreciate the supervisor bringing this forward, and as well as the Personnel Vacancy Review Committee. I think I discussed this need when we talked about that marijuana ordinance, odor ordinance, and if we needed to invest a little bit more in our building department. And I think this is a really good step forward where we can be more proactive than reactive, as the supervisor suggested. So I think that this is a great opportunity for us to make that investment. I hope that we continue that trend in future budgets, and that these positions stay. And even, at this point, I know that these won't be unionized positions, but I hope even in the future we can discuss that.
Well, they wouldn't be when they're part-time.
Correct. I just mean even making a further investment in the future.
Okay, thank you. So, roll call?
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
thank you. Item 14 has been deleted. Item 15, approval to purchase election office furniture.
Dear board members, with recent changes in election law, I have had to analyze best practices to prepare for the anticipated increased request by voters for absentee ballots. As a hands-on clerk, I have personally experienced the intense demand during elections for absentee ballots. This demand requires elections workers behind the counter to get up and down excessively as they process ballots at their computers and get back up to wait on voters at the counter. Also, the present furniture is 27 years old. Please see the attached schematic of the new furniture, its placement and addition of 4 extra workstations. Note that 4 of the tables are hydraulic with perched chairs that allow election workers the ability to adapt their stations into standing workstations if necessary. These standing stations not only protect the workers from the repetitive up and down motions, but will also lead to quicker transactions at the counter. I'm requesting from this honorable board to purchase new equipment for the elections room. This is a budgeted item. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer, Clinton Township Clerk.
Are there any comments or questions? The floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you.
Mr. Keenan.
Mr. Keys?
Yeah, just through the chair to Ms. Meltzer. For this request, I didn't get the total.
The total, it was included in your packet.
Yeah,
It's in there.
I got a bunch of totals.
Well, at the end is a total.
Okay,
The
let me
total
pull
is
that
less
back
than
up.
actually, it's $8,732.02. We initially budgeted approximately $20,000.
Okay.
And we looked at what those costs were, and then we learned that ISCG, which is a company in Royal Oak, participates with the Hayworth, which is a state, through My Deal.
Okay.
And so it's a very lean cost, and so we feel that it's going to serve us well, and it's a great price.
Great, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a motion on the floor?
Yep.
Yep.
Roll call?
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes. Thank you.
Approval of the minutes of the July 15th, 2019 regular township board meeting?
So moved without objection?
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Approval of the bills?
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We have one public comment, Mr. Sam Bushell.
Sam Bushell, 18546 Wayland. I am here, my favorite subject, dumpsters. The dumpster companies, the trash haulers, have to, as part of their permit that they permit every year, they have to give a route of where their dumps, where their dumpsters are going every year. Most of these dumpsters, as you know, I provided each of you a list of all of the copies of every way into the one subdivision that got ticketed a lot. You have to pass multiple unlicensed dumpsters. And in the last 5 years plus, no trash haulers have been cited or ticketed for putting out illegal dumpsters. And we all know they aren't allowed to do that. And I am just wondering, right near me at the Speedway at 15 Mile and Kelly, they have 2 dumpsters out, loud and proud, and I must say, the building department talked to them, and now they have actually in the last few months, and a lot of the neighbors appreciate it, they're now at least keeping their dumpsters closed, and they're sweeping up their lot, the first time ever. And across the street at Honest Plaza, they moved 2 of the dumpsters into the dumpster enclosure, but they've still got one it just got emptied today, but it was open and belching. But this has cut down on the trash flowing in the neighborhood. And we even had a woman who is, I'm not going to say who she is, but she actually thought that it was a complete fib that no trash haulers had been ticketed in over 5 years. And I said, boy, I did it with a FOIA. But she actually protested because it was in the minutes of a neighborhood meeting. And I'm just wondering, are the trash haulers going to be, they get licensed every year. If they put these things illegally, they should have been cited by now, and I'm hoping they will. And I'm certainly wondering, at the Speedway, they're less than an acre. They can't even have 2 dumpsters. And the reason the dumpsters are so important, when you drive by, when the building department and their code enforcement officers, when they drive by an open dumpster out without screening, they know that it's not up to site plan. And to drive by them and then ticket homes is totally unfair and unreasonable. And I would hope this board will take some action on it. Thank you.
Thank you. A motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. West?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.